Vietnam's infrastructure supercycle. Vietnam is currently undergoing the largest infrastructure expansion in its modern history. Between 2025 and 2028, the country has launched or approved nearly 234 major projects, with a combined value of more than 129 billion US dollars. These projects span aviation, railways, expressways, mega-urban zones, energy, logistics, and advanced technology. This video explains what Vietnam is building, how these projects fit together, and why this infrastructure wave matters economically and geopolitically. 1. What is an infrastructure supercycle? An infrastructure supercycle is not a short-term construction boom, it is a coordinated, multi-year investment push across multiple sectors. Backed by state policy, long-term financing, and strategic planning, Vietnam's current wave qualifies as a supercycle for 3 reasons. 1. Scale. The total value exceeds $129 billion, unprecedented in Vietnam's history. 2. Scope. Projects cover transport, cities, energy, industry, and technology simultaneously. 3. Timing. It coincides with global supply chain restructuring and geopolitical fragmentation. This means Vietnam is not just building faster, it is building with a specific strategic intent. 2. The core objective, control of connectivity. At its core, Vietnam's infrastructure strategy aims to control connectivity. Connectivity determines how goods move, how capital flows, where production clusters form. Historically, Vietnam depended heavily on external hubs, foreign ports, airports, and logistics corridors. The current strategy seeks to internalize those functions. 3. Long Thành International Airport explained. The flagship project is Long Thành International Airport, the most expensive infrastructure investment ever undertaken in Vietnam. When fully completed, Long Thành is planned to handle over 100 million passengers annually, approximately 5 million tons of cargo per year.
This puts it in the same capacity category as the world's largest aviation hubs. Why does this matter? From an economic perspective, air cargo is essential for high-value manufacturing such as electronics, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors. Faster, direct connections reduce logistics costs and production delays. From a geopolitical perspective, Vietnam reduces reliance on regional transit hubs like Singapore or Bangkok. Strategic autonomy increases when logistics choke points are under national control. In short, Long Thanh is not just an airport, it is a power multiplier. 4. Railways and expressways. How geography is being rewritten. Airports connect Vietnam to the world. Railways and highways connect Vietnam to itself, and to continental Asia. A key project is the Lao Cai, Hanoi, Haiphong Railway, a nearly 400-kilometer corridor linking China's border directly to Vietnam's largest northern port. With an estimated investment of $7.7 billion US dollars, this railway is designed for both passenger and freight transport. Its impact is structural. Logistics costs drop significantly, transport time between factories and ports is reduced, northern Vietnam becomes more competitive for export manufacturing. At the same time, the North-South Expressway is being built as a continuous national backbone, improving labor mobility and domestic market integration. Together, these corridors turn Vietnam into a single connected production platform, rather than fragmented regional economies. 5. Why mega-urban projects exist. Vietnam's infrastructure push also includes mega-urban developments, particularly in Hanoi and surrounding regions. Projects like the proposed Olympic Sports Urban Area carry estimated investments of 35 to 40 billion USD. At the center is the proposed Trong Dong Stadium, planned with a capacity of up to 135,000 seats. These projects serve several purposes: absorbing large volumes of domestic and foreign capital, stimulating construction, services, and real estate sectors, creating national landmarks that signal long-term stability. While controversial, such projects function as capital sinks and confidence signals, especially in emerging markets. 6. Decentralization, reducing systemic risk. One of the most important aspects of Vietnam's strategy is geographic decentralization. Instead of concentrating growth only in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, major projects are increasingly distributed nationwide. Examples include Ha Long Gian in Quang Ninh, a coastal mega-urban and tourism zone with investment exceeding 11 billion US dollars. Industrial and energy hubs in Ha Tinh, focusing on renewables, steel, and industrial urban integration. Decentralization reduces urban congestion, political and social pressure, long-term inequality between regions. For investors, it expands the map of opportunity. 7. Energy, technology, and strategic autonomy. Vietnam is also investing heavily beyond physical infrastructure. Key areas include renewable energy, wind, solar, grid upgrades, industrial parks for electronics and semiconductors, AI and R&D centers led by domestic firms such as Viettel. The goal is to move Vietnam up the global value chain, away from pure assembly work toward higher value-added production. Geopolitically, this supports strategic autonomy, allowing Vietnam to engage with multiple global powers without excessive dependence on any single one. 8. Risks and constraints explained. No infrastructure supercycle is risk-free. Vietnam faces several constraints: execution capacity across hundreds of simultaneous projects, financing and debt management, land acquisition and environmental pressures, coordination between central and provincial governments. The success of this strategy will depend not on ambition, but on governance, sequencing, and institutional discipline. Final takeaway: Vietnam's infrastructure supercycle is not about short-term growth, it is about controlling connectivity, reshaping economic geography, strengthening strategic autonomy, repositioning Vietnam within Asia's power structure. Whether this bet succeeds will define Vietnam's economic and geopolitical role for decades to come.